Within the hallowed silence of the Vatican, the walls hold more than pigment. Some seem to breathe with a restless, ancient wonder. Under the weight of soaring arches, a phantom assembly gathers. Figures caught mid-sentence, as if time itself has exhaled and paused, granting us a fleeting moment to overhear the secrets of the ages. At the heart of Raphael's School of Athens' luminous stage, two titans command the air. One gestures toward the infinite heavens, the other anchors his palm to the pulse of the earth. And, in that silent tension between the upward reach and the outward grasp, a haunting question begins to take root. Can the finite human mind ever grasp the eternal? In the dawn of the 16th century, Rome was a city awakening to the ghosts of antiquity with a fervor that bordered on the sacred. To these masters, philosophy was not a cold academic pursuit. It was a path of the soul, a bridge built of logic leading toward the divine. Yet, for all its measured grace, the School of Athens harbors a profound mystery. Why do these sages, separated by the chasm of centuries, share this singular, impossible space? And why does their certainty feel at once so monumental and so fragile? Step by step, the scene shifts from a gallery of great thinkers to a map of our own inner search. Because the enigma Raphael hid within these brushstrokes has never truly left us. Can our reason truly bring us closer to the divine, or does it merely lead us in beautiful, dizzying circles around it? Long before Raphael's hands touched these walls, Europe began to rediscover a forgotten fire, the intellectual spirit of ancient Greece. Lost manuscripts reappeared, bringing the voices of Plato and Aristotle back to life, with questions that felt uncannily modern. What is real? What constitutes a good life? What is the nature of the divine? Crucially, this was not a rebellion against faith. It unfolded at the very heart of the Vatican. Because, to the Renaissance mind, reason was not a threat to God, but his greatest gift. They believed that to think clearly was to honor creation itself, suggesting a bold new path, that we might find the divine not only in Scripture, but through the disciplined use of the human reason. However, if the Renaissance's renewed faith in the mind had a voice, it was that of Giovanni Pico della Mirandola.
But when this work was done, the divine artificer still longed for some creature which might comprehend the meaning of so vast an achievement, which might be moved with love at its beauty and smitten with awe at its grandeur. When, consequently, all else had been completed, as both Moses and Timaeus testify, in the very last place, he bethought himself of bringing forth man.
In an age of rigid hierarchies, he dared to imagine the human soul as something startlingly fluid. To Pico, we were not fixed stars in a cold firmament, but travelers suspended between earth and heaven, granted the terrifying, beautiful freedom to sculpt our own essence.
The Supreme Maker decreed that this creature, to whom he could give nothing wholly his own, should have a share in the particular endowment of every other creature. Taking man, therefore, this creature of indeterminate image, he set him in the middle of the world and thus spoke to him.
We have given you, O Adam, no visage proper to yourself, nor any endowment properly your own, in order that whatever place, whatever form, whatever gifts you may, with premeditation, select, these same you may have and possess through your own judgment and decision. The nature of all other creatures is defined and restricted within laws which we have laid down. You, by contrast, impeded by no such restrictions, may by your own free will, to whose custody we have assigned you, trace for yourself the lineaments of your own nature.
By rescuing the concept of human dignity, he argued that being made in the image of God means more than just reflection. It also means possessing the co-creative spark. and that we are the only part of creation with the liberty to choose our own height.
I have placed you at the very center of the world, so that from that vantage point, you may with greater ease glance round about you on all that the world contains. We have made you a creature neither of heaven nor of earth, neither mortal nor immortal, in order that you may, as the free and proud shaper of your own being, fashion yourself in the form you may prefer. It will be in your power to descend to the lower, brutish forms of life. You will be able, through your own decision, to rise again to the superior orders whose life is divine.
This realization transformed the artist's calling. The brush and the chisel were no longer tools of mere craft, but instruments of a sacred will. To create was to mirror the divine architect. Furthermore, Pico traced a golden thread of perennial wisdom back through the ancient sages, suggesting that the ultimate truth has always been a singular, universal flame. So, through this lens, the concept of knowledge transformed from a simple collection of facts into a process of alchemy. To study the stars or the ancient texts was to climb a ladder of light, where every insight became a step toward the celestial. To better understand Raphael's School of Athens, we must first step into a moment when Rome believed itself to be the mind of the world. At the beginning of the 16th century, the city was not only the seat of the church, it was becoming a magnet for genius. Painters, architects, and thinkers converged there, drawn by ambition and patronage. Among them arrived a young artist from Urbino, Raphael. He was barely in his 20s, known for his grace, his clarity, and an almost effortless ability to harmonize complexity. Where others struggled, Raphael seemed to compose, and Rome was ready for him. At the heart of this amazing transformation stood Pope Julius II, a man as formidable as he was visionary. Julius was not a quiet patron of the arts. He was a strategist, determined to reshape Rome into a new imperial and spiritual capital. Therefore, he commissioned grand projects not only to honor God, but to outshine his predecessors and assert his legacy. Under his command, the Vatican became a living workshop. Michelangelo was painting the Sistine Chapel ceiling, Donato Bramante was redesigning St. Peter's Basilica, and into this charged atmosphere, Raphael was invited to decorate a suite of papal rooms, the stanze. For the Pope's library, or Stanza della Segnatura, Raphael was tasked with a divine cartography to map the four horizons of the human spirit. Here, he envisioned a world where all knowledge was not a chaotic sea, but a structured temple supported by four pillars: theology, law, poetry, and philosophy. Each wall of the room became a window into these realms, symbolizing the four paths through which humanity seeks the face of the Creator. Theology represented the revelation of the divine, law, the order of society, and poetry, the breath of inspiration. Yet, it was in the final branch, philosophy, that the human mind was given its most expansive stage. Bathed in a Neoplatonic glow, the assembly in Raphael's School of Athens unfolds as a vertical pilgrimage, a shared ascent toward the source of all being. Above the scene, the solemn inscription Causarum Cognitio, the knowledge of causes, serves as a silent mandate to seek the why of the world as a sacred act. Moreover, though the Pope's collection of philosophical texts was modest, it held a precious copy of Aristotle's Ethics. Raphael honors this by placing the volume in the philosopher's hand as he gestures toward the earth, reminding us that truth begins with the pulse of the world we can see. And yet, within these hallowed halls, the search for earthly causes inevitably reaches upward, seeking the first cause that mirrors the divine. If the figures in Raphael's school of Athens provide the voice of philosophy, the architecture provides its soul. The artist did not place his sages in a void. He anchored them within a soaring, vaulted monumentality. A setting that draws deeply from Roman design, monumental arches and mathematical proportions that feel like a physical manifestation of logic. We may never know if Raphael believed ancient Greece looked this way, or if he was boldly framing Rome as the sole heir to classical wisdom. Regardless, the result is a masterpiece of historical folding, ancient thought reborn in a robust Roman body. This structural harmony bears the fingerprints of Donato Bramante, whose Greek cross plans define the era's aesthetic. By using his master's plan, Raphael subtly bridges pagan philosophy and Christian doctrine without a hint of friction. The space feels balanced and ordered, a vision of unity rather than a battlefield of ideas. The golden thread of knowledge woven into the very masonry of the walls. Nature's secrets lie hidden in the smallest details. Circular forms, from the sweep of the arches to the curves of the domes, recur like a rhythmic pulse. To ancient thinkers like Pythagoras, the circle was the monad, the indivisible source of all.
That the monad was the beginning of everything. From the monad proceeds an indefinite duad, which is subordinate to the monad as to its cause. That from the monad and the indefinite duad proceed numbers, and from numbers, signs, and from these last, lines of which the figures consist. And from plane figures are derived solid bodies, and from solid bodies sensible bodies, of which last there are four elements: fire, water, earth, and air.
So, seen through a Neoplatonic lens, these shapes suggest that the visible world is but a reflection of an invisible, perfect unity. Even the Greek meander pattern on the central arch wins endlessly, symbolizing a truth that has no beginning and no end. Furthermore, this architectural mind eventually divides the stage into two symbolic halves. On the left, beneath the statue of Apollo, Plato presides over the ethereal realm of music and abstraction. On the right, under the watchful gaze of Athena, Aristotle anchors his gaze in the physical world of ethics and experience. And the newfound power of linear perspective guides this entire vision. To Renaissance masters like Alberti and Leonardo, perspective was more than a tool. It was a symbol of human reason's ability to organize the infinite.
Perspective made a promising case study not because it described the world correctly, but because it described the world according to a rational and repeatable procedure. Perspective overrode the distinctions of the idiomatic. This is what Panofsky means when he calls perspective the objectification of the subjective, or the carrying over of artistic objectivity into the domain of the phenomenal. Perspective encourages a strange kind of identification of the art object and the world object. It is perspective, after all, that makes possible the metaphor of a Weltanschauung, a worldview in the first place.
At the heart of Raphael's school of Athens, the restless murmur of history settles into a profound, luminous clarity. Here, the logic of linear perspective acts as a silent conductor, pulling our gaze toward a single vanishing point, where the architecture itself seems to meditate. In this hallowed center, two titans, Plato and Aristotle, stride forward in a choreographed debate that defines the boundaries of the human soul. One finger points toward the celestial heights. One palm levels over the sun-drenched stone. Plato carries the Timaeus, his eyes fixed on the eternal patterns that exist beyond the veil of the senses. To him, reality is an unmoving sun, a divine order of perfect forms. Beside him, Aristotle holds his ethics, grounding his vision in the messy, living pulse of human habit. He reminds us that while geometry is absolute, life is a tapestry of probabilities, a search for the good enough within our beautifully flawed existence. One reaches for the perfection of the stars. The other refines the dignity of the possible. Yet, for all their contrast, Raphael refuses to let them drift into isolation. He binds them in a shared stride, proving that their differences are not obstacles, but the necessary tensions that keep the bridge of reason standing. And perhaps, this is the grace of Renaissance humanism. The conviction that, whether we ascend toward divine light or cultivate virtue in the dust, it is the pursuit of knowledge that ultimately transforms us. And yet, if the central figures suggest a destination, the surrounding assembly reveals something more elusive: the path itself. Within the vast architecture of Raphael's School of Athens, philosophy is not fixed. It moves, breathes, and unfolds through a constellation of minds. Each one a different way of reaching toward truth. To the left, beneath the serene presence of Apollo, the air seems to thin into abstraction. This is the realm of the unseen, of harmony, number, and idea. At its center stands Plato, bearing the unmistakable features of Leonardo da Vinci. The choice is deliberate. In Leonardo, Raphael found a living echo of Plato's vision, a mind searching for hidden structures beneath the surface of the world. So, when Plato lifts his hand toward the heavens, holding the Timaeus, the gesture becomes more than philosophical. It becomes a portrait of Renaissance aspiration itself. Nearby, Socrates unsettles this quiet elevation. He does not write. He questions. His fingers count out arguments in the air, drawing a circle of listeners into dialogue. There is no certainty in his posture, only movement. He reminds us that wisdom does not begin with answers, but with the courage to doubt. Below, the invisible order of the cosmos takes form. Pythagoras bends over his book, tracing numerical harmonies that bind music, mathematics, and the structure of reality. Close by, Averroes leans in, a quiet yet profound presence. His inclusion stretches the fresco beyond Greece and Rome, suggesting that knowledge travels, preserved, translated, and transformed across cultures. Even Epicurus, crowned with vine leaves, finds a place here, hinting that the search for truth also passes through the question of how to live well. To the right, under the steady gaze of Athena, thought descends into the tangible world, into measurement, structure, and action. At the center stands Aristotle, grounded, composed, his hand extended horizontally, as if to meet his physical surroundings. In contrast to Plato's ascent, Aristotle's gesture invites us outward, a reminder that truth is not only contemplated, it is also lived. Below him, knowledge takes on weight and form. Euclid, bearing the features of Donato Bramante, bends toward the ground, compass in hand. His geometry does more than dream. It proves. Each line drawn is a claim about reality itself. Behind him, the cosmos unfolds in two spheres. Ptolemy holds the earth, while Zoroaster lifts the heavens. Between them, the universe is mapped, measured, imagined, and held within human grasp. And then, almost timidly, Raphael steps into his own creation. At the edge of this group, he paints himself, meeting our gaze. But he does not appear simply as Raphael. He appears as Apelles, the legendary painter of antiquity. The gesture is subtle, yet bold. By aligning himself with the greatest painter of the ancient world, Raphael claims a new place for the artist, not as a craftsman, but as an intellectual equal. Because, in the Renaissance, art was not just decoration, it was a form of thought, a way of knowing. And so, in Raphael's school of Athens, the painter stands among philosophers, not outside them. Furthermore, this fresco seems to dissolve the very idea of time. Figures who never met now share a single breath as centuries collapse into one unfolding moment. And among them, a luminous figure, often identified as Hypatia, turns outward, her gaze crossing the painted threshold to meet ours. In that glance, something shifts. Antiquity is no longer distant. It feels immediate, alive. Moreover, by giving ancient thinkers the faces of his contemporaries, friends, rivals, masters, Raphael suggests that knowledge is never inherited intact, but must be rediscovered, relearned, and understood again. However, even within this apparent harmony, a subtle tension begins to surface. The architecture holds firm, the conversations flow, but then, almost imperceptibly, your eye is drawn downward to a solitary figure, seated apart, absorbed in thought. This is Heraclitus, the weeping philosopher of flux, known for his belief that all things are in constant change. And yet, his features are unmistakably those of Michelangelo. This was no accident, nor was it part of the original design. Technical studies of the preparatory drawings reveal that this figure was added later, painted onto fresh plaster, after the main composition had already settled into balance. At that time, Michelangelo was laboring in a world of his own, perched high upon the scaffolding of the Sistine Chapel. He was a storm, trapped beneath a ceiling, birthing a new heaven, while the dust of the Vatican settled in his lungs. His presence in Rome was impossible to ignore. Neither, it seems, was his influence. Legend whispers that Raphael, perhaps guided by a daring curiosity, secretly stole into the chapel and found himself transfigured by the sight of those monumental muscular forms. It was a revelation, one that rippled through his blood and changed the very stroke of his brush, overnight. Compelled perhaps by this unsettling encounter, Raphael did something extraordinary. He returned to a surface already resolved. Fresco technique rarely allows for hesitation. Each giornata is meant to be final. And yet, he reopened the plaster and carved out a space, not for an ancient voice, but for a living rival. However, he did not place him among the luminous exchanges that animate the school of Athens. Instead, he set him apart, almost in exile. Where others speak, this Michelangelo Heraclitus writes his weary sonnets upon a massive block of marble. A sculptor's stone, dense and unresolved, echoing the very material Michelangelo wrestled into form. His posture folds into itself, steeped in that introspection Renaissance writers would later call terribilità, an intense, almost violent gravity associated with Michelangelo's genius. A heavy anchor in a sea of ideas, suggesting that the search for truth does not always arrive as a shared triumph, but can also emerge as a private, agonizing burden. However, Heraclitus is not alone in this solitude. Nearby, Diogenes lies stretched across the steps, untouched by the order that surrounds him. He refuses its rhythm, he refuses its rules. His truth lives in detachment, not in dialogue. Together, these figures open another path. one that turns away from consensus and toward resistance, towards renewal. And suddenly, what once appeared as a serene celebration of shared knowledge becomes something more fragile, more human. A space where unity can exist, but not without tension. Heraclitus, in particular, alters everything. He believed that everything flows, that nothing remains, that you cannot step into the same river twice. In a space built on reason, proportion, and clarity, his presence feels almost foreign. And yet, this figure does not break the fresco. It completes it with a new paradox. Can a perfect system contain a philosophy of instability? Or, by doing so, it begins to unravel from within. This way, Raphael's School of Athens becomes more than just a celebration of knowledge. It also turns into a meditation on how knowledge is pursued. Some seek it together, through dialogue and debate. Others retreat, carving their way through doubt in silence. Some build systems, others dismantle them, and all, in their own way, remain unfinished. Thus, the harmony we first perceived reveals its deeper nature. It is not perfect, but it is held, carefully, almost precariously, by the struggle that gives it life. Ultimately, the School of Athens holds reason and faith, heaven and earth, in perpetual tension. It does not resolve the paradoxes it presents. It preserves them, allowing them to coexist as a symphony of contradictions. Humanity stands, as the fresco suggests, between two eternal gestures, one reaching beyond the veil, the other grounding that reach in the sunlit dust of experience. In this sanctuary of thought, philosophy is revealed in its deepest sense, not as a collection of cold facts, but as philosophia, a profound intellectual love, an eros of the mind, seeking to transfigure the human condition, a fragile hope that through dialogue, reflection, and the patient labor of understanding, we might still move, however slowly, toward the divine light. And so, more than 5 centuries after Raphael's School of Athens was revealed, we continue to search, to wonder, and to reach for a wisdom that could be both our anchor and our wings.